I'd like to introduce first a huge star in the world of guitar and the world of shred. You might know her from the Iron Maidens or Alice Cooper Band or that amazing video we just saw. Please give it up for Nita Strauss. Our next guest is a phenomenal guitar player with deep ties to the underground music scene here in LA. You may have seen him play with Nilbog, the Goblin cover band, or you might have heard him on the Room 237 soundtrack. Great documentary. If you've never seen it, watch it tonight. You'll be creeped out. This is David Rothbaum. And fresh from the State of Shred address on this very stage, here she is once again, Mrs. Smith. Is everyone's mic working here?
Yes.
Oh, I think so.
Oh, yep.
Phenomenal.
All right. Everyone, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I guess we should start with, tell us about who some of your guitar idols were growing up. I mean, we can all take guesses, but I would love to hear from you. Who were you listening to growing up that made you want to do this?
Well, first of all, my Namthrax is worse than Mrs. Smith's, so you'll have to forgive me fighting through being sick and trying to chat with you guys. But my hero, my first influence was actually the movie that Mrs. Smith talked about. You might have heard me over there go woo when she talked about Crossroads. How many of you guys are guitar players?
Yeah.
Not that many, actually. Have you guys all seen Crossroads?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any guitar players in here that haven't seen Crossroads, if you haven't seen it, it's must-see. If you're even the slightest remote bit interested in shred guitar, you definitely have to go and watch Crossroads. And that was my big introduction to shred guitar, because before I saw the movie, I had a guitar. I had a $99 Squier Strat that I didn't play very much. But when I saw Crossroads, I remember sitting bolt upright in my parents' living room thinking, how come nobody told me you could do that with a guitar? If I would have known that, I would have practiced a lot more a long time ago. So that was really my jump start into the world of actually practicing.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, Crossroads is from 87, I think, or 88.
88.
And it's directed by Walter Hill, who did 48 Hours and Streets of Fire and a bunch of other movies you've seen. Most importantly, it stars...
I haven't seen any of those movies.
Most importantly, it stars Ralph Macchio.
And most importantly, it stars Steve Vai.
Steve Vai.
Steve Vai gives an unhinged performance as the Devil's guitar player. And the playing is quite interesting because it's blues progressions, but he's doing modal playing over it. So if you're familiar with his style, he loves to play in the Dorian mode, the Mixolydian mode.
Yeah.
Dorian! The picture of Dorian Gray. And I love that. So he's playing what is sort of intricate and interesting modal playing. Very fast, but also there's a physicality.
He's effortless.
Yes.
Fast. I'm still, and Steve actually has heard me say this, which is sort of embarrassing, but I still to this day aspire to be as cool and effortless as Steve Vai was in Crossroads.
Yeah.
It's my ultimate goal as a guitar player.
Woo! Yeah.
David, who were you listening to growing up?
When I started, Iron Maiden was a big one in the 80s, and then Yngwie came along, and then that kind of just changed everything. So it was definitely Yngwie early on.
And Mrs. Smith.
Well, all these influences are new for me. So, but Joe Satriani is big. But I will say, Edward Van Halen has cast a spell over me. And like I noted in the presentation, the groove, the swing. He has a song called Top Jimmy, which has, and Drop Dead Legs, which is kind of wild topic. Lyrically, don't listen to lyrics, just listen. But there's a turning and a churning. There is a sensuality in the strings that I just am so inspired by lately. I can't stop listening to Edward Van Halen.
But is there more sensuality than Tender Surrender?
Oh, well, that's a Steve Vai classic. I have to say my favorite Steve Vai song is called Blue Powder. and it's a mysterious, it's almost like a Zen cone.
The attitude song, too.
Attitude song.
Very hard to play. Yeah.
It's all hard to play.
It's all hard to play. The good stuff is hard to play.
Was everybody on the panel self-taught, or did you have a mentor that really pointed you in the shredding direction?
I was self-taught, totally.
Self-taught.
There were magazines discarded in the closet in the doorway. But I couldn't make out a lot of the titles of the songs, or the faces of the people, which is why to this day I don't recognize any of them.
Because they were Norwegian.
They were in Norwegian.
I was watching from over there.
That's it.
What is your favorite part of your acts? What like little node or nook or cranny is your favorite part?
Whammy bar. It's that simple. It really is.
But it's always going loose. You just taught me a trick, the
Lighter trick.
Yeah, the lighter trick.
Guitar players, you know that one? If you have the Ibanez bar, the low pro edge bar with the white bushings, if it starts to get a little loose, you can run a lighter, like a cigarette lighter, just run it over it like that a few times, get all the sides of the bushing, and that will tighten it back up.
I like this.
The more you know.
This is the pickup switch. And this makes it sound different. So when you put it here, you get a warm sound, like a bluesy sound. You can get around. You hear you hear the picking. And then this, it gets evil. You get the evil sound. And that's that one. It's very hot and loud. I like the pickup switch.
Yeah, neck pickup.
Yep, neck pickup.
So Nita and Mrs. Smith both play Ibanez gem guitars. What led you to that particular axe?
Well, actually, if I can swing it around in slightly different
Sure.
avenue, I do have a gem, but I recently, literally last week, became the first female Ibanez artist to have a signature series. So now I play that.
About time, Ibanez. Good job, kids.
No, that's amazing, because Ibanez does sponsor other female guitar
They
players,
do.
but there's never been a woman who's had her own guitar.
A signature, yes. You know, there's a big distinction there because I never ever want to take a single thing away from the greatest of all, Jennifer Batten.
Jennifer Batten is the queen of shred.
The queen forever, who I believe was the first woman to be endorsed by Ibanez before, I think I was 2 or 3 when she was endorsed by it. She is all of our predecessors. She's been doing it longer than all of us, and she does it better than all of us.
She played with Michael Jackson and then also toured with Jeff Beck, which I thought was really gutsy of Jeff Beck.
Yeah,
that monster goddess.
Listen, I played with Jennifer last year at the She Rocks Awards at NAMM, and let me say that if I was Jeff Beck, I would have taken her on tour. I wouldn't have wanted to play more than one song with her because she's such a presence and such an incredible force on the stage and on the guitar. You know, I could only go a few rounds with her. But she did not play Ibanez. But what led me specifically to Ibanez guitars, besides the fact that all my heroes are Ibanez players like Steve Vai and Satriani and Paul Gilbert and so many more, was the feel of the guitar in your hands. And I think above anything else, that's what you have to look for in a guitar, is something that feels right, feels like an extension of your body, and that's what the Ibanez neck feels like to me.
Yeah, these are fast guitars. This is like, it's like you don't get into a Porsche and then just sort of lollygag down the street. You hit the pedal to the metal, you go, and you play these fast. Anyone will feel that the shape of the neck, the way it feels against your body. This is an Ibanez guitar with flowers. And it does have a handle like a purse, which I love. And it's got a flower pattern, and I think it's the most beautiful guitar in the world. And so I'm very lucky.
Second.
I was very lucky to come across this guitar through chance. So, right, no, Nita's is also a beautiful guitar in the world.
Thank you.
Yes, so that's the Ibanez guitar. We love Ibanez.
Do you notice, if I can ask a question, be the interviewer for a second, do you notice that when people pick up your guitar, they try to play just like solos on it, they try to shred on it?
Yeah.
Like even people that don't play guitar, they pick up my guitars and they go, like they try to, they tap and they do like, people that literally are not even guitar players. My wonderful boyfriend who you saw playing drums in my music video is a drummer and very good at it. He's over there. And he picks up my guitars, and he plays a little guitar, and he's a good songwriter, but he's not a lead player. But when he was playing Mrs. Smith's gem upstairs, he was just finger tapping on it. He's a shredder. But
they come up there probably is a little wood nymph.
Fast.
There's a wood nymph or an elf or an imp, a mischievous imp, and it just is dictating to the fingers.
Go. Play fast.
Go, faster.
You can do it on this guitar. You might not be able to do it on any other guitar, but this is the one.
I can't do it on a Les Paul. They put me in a coma. I go flat out. Coma.
There's another female guitar pioneer that I was curious if any of you knew where she was at these days, and that's the Great Cat.
I love the Great Cat. I love the Great Cat. The last I saw, because I looked her up about a year ago, because I had that same thought in my head. I wonder what the great shred violinist and guitar player is doing these days. And the last thing I saw was some sort of like bloody pin-up-y calendar type stuff that she was doing, selling 8x10s and whatnot on her website. Woo! So I don't know beyond that. I didn't look too much further, but if she was playing shows, I would definitely go.
Well, that means
Bloody Vivaldi, right? Wasn't that her? Yeah, so rad.
Bloody calendar concerns me.
My favorite thing of hers
it's intervention time.
is if you look at the old videos of her, like her interviews. And there's one of her walking down the street, I think in New York, and this guy's trying to interview her, and she said, "Fuck this, I'll interview myself. Hey, Cat, what makes you the greatest? Hey, well, I'll tell you, I'm the greatest motherfucking guitar player on the face of the planet. You won't believe it? Ask this guy. Hey, am I not the greatest?" And it was so, it's so her. I showed one of the guitar players from my band was from the same area, so he goes, "Oh yeah, she's always been like that."
So, it's a double-edged sword. You're now closer to the fans than ever before. You don't need a band. In a way, the soloist has gone entirely solo. You can take it right to people. And obviously, you're doing quite well. How do you make a living? Like in the old days, you would have had a band. You're in the band. You're in the Alice Cooper band. But when you're not playing with the band, like how do you make a living? How do you take shredding from town to town or place to place and and make that your livelihood?
I think the most important thing about being a professional guitar player in 2018 is that it's not just about playing guitar. It's about the entire package. You have to be able to speak well. You have to be able to keep up with other musicians on stage. You have to be able to play all different styles of music. You have to be able to adapt to changing circumstances and changing, all of a sudden, Alice throws us new songs all the time, and I'm still, after 4 years, the new guy in the band. So they go, "Oh yeah, no, we did this one in 2012. And I was like, "You guys, I was not in this band then." Be able to do guitar clinics, be able to get yourself endorsements that will put you on these clinics, be able to teach, be able to impact your knowledge on different people and be able to express yourself in different ways, be able to show up someplace on time is a very important one. I know a lot of people that have lost gigs because they couldn't manage to get to the bus on time. Little things like that go a very, very long way, but it's really just, I think the same as any other industry is just be the best at what you do.
I remember there was a bass teacher that I once saw who demonstrated. He had his upright bass, he had a $20 bill, and he put the $20 bill up where all the high notes were, and the $20 bill would fall. And as he kept moving it all the way up to the low notes, that's where the $20 bill stuck. So for me, I do mostly film work and recording, which is a lot of power chords, and it's not a lot of soloing, so it's kind of the similar thing to that.
How does sponsorship work? So I've been listening to rock and roll my entire life, and you look in the liner notes of any album and it says, so-and-so is sponsored by brand X. How does that work exactly?
First of all, it's not Mezza Barbara. I understand that people might think it was Barbara, please? Barbara, please? It's Mezza Barbara. These beasts are made in Italy by hand. And what I love about them, it was by chance. It was by chance. I was looking, I was interested, not in many. Not in many. I wanted a powerfully masculine aspect. I wanted a powerfully masculine aspect to come through. A friend connected me with these. He said they're monsters. I had the occasion to come to Los Angeles. I had the occasion to try one in a garage. I had the occasion to have my mind blown by what I heard. So you just have a little arrangement. Some of them are more stringent than others. Some of them are very, very exclusive. Some of them have a time frame, and some of them are simple. I have a simple agreement with Mesa Barba. You know, I only play these amplifiers because I love them and they sound fantastic. And to be photographed with them, and I support and promote them, and they support and promote me. They brought me to NAMM, which was an extraordinary opportunity. We lit up Instagram and YouTube, views in the hundreds of thousands, and you know, so JP, my darling JP, and Pierangelo would come out today to set this up for me. You know, this is not my amplifier, but when I'm in LA, I have access. You know, I don't have to ship something. I have my own when I'm in New York. So it just is a helpful relationship. I will say this. This is it. This is the most important thing. Where you get this, and this. And then there's all kinds of stuff in between. That doesn't make much of a difference because it's in the fingers. And what I find is that the fans are a little overly in love with the gear. And some of the artists are a little overly in love with the gear. Because let me tell you something, gear reviews are not music. Posting about your gear is not making music. Posting about your sponsorships constantly is not being a musician. It's being it's part of it. But you have to make music, my dear. And I don't care if you make music with imagery or if you make an album or whatever it is. I make music for live performance. So these are the two big pieces. But I don't know if you would agree with me that the gear is getting a little bit out of control.
It's a little out of hand. You know, no piece of equipment will make up for practicing. That's it. That's the bottom line.
Dropped it.
That's the bottom line because I said so. But you know, something I learned as a kid doing gymnastics is that nobody can do your push-up for you. You know what I mean? You have to put in the work, you have to put in the practice, or the fanciest effects and the fanciest amp and the fanciest guitars and everything, it's not going to make you a great guitar player. So, totally agree with you on that. And you know, people are always asking me, well, what's on your pedal board? My pedal board is a MIDI controller. I don't have anything on my pedal board. It's the most boring pedal board ever. I have a MIDI wah pedal on it that's not even plugged in. But back to the endorsements, something interesting I think I can add to the conversation is, you know, I do have, you know, I endorse the products that I love. I endorse, you know, Ibanez guitars, DiMarzio pickups, D'Addario strings, and Marshall amps. Those are my endorsements. And a lot, you know, I will tag them in all my posts. Sometimes I'll post about, you know, D'Addario strings. I play D'Addario NYXLs, and I think, bar none, they're the greatest strings ever made. I really believe that. And if they didn't give me free strings, I would still go out and buy an $11 pack of NYXLs because they're that good. Like, you know, and the same thing with Ibanez. When I had my meeting with Ibanez 10 years ago, actually, this year is 10 years I've been an Ibanez artist, I went to them with my hat in my hand and I said, all my heroes are Ibanez players. And if you want to work with me, that would be a dream come true. But if you don't want to work with me, I totally understand and I'll still proudly play my Ibanez guitars. And they took a chance on me in 2008, and 3 months later I was in the Jermaine Jackson band. So it worked out. But the interesting thing about endorsements that most people don't realize, you know, when I do a post that says, you know, D'Addario NYXL strings are made from unicorn hair because they're the best, and people say, oh, she's only posting that because she gets paid to, I don't get paid anything to post about any of the stuff that I use. I do get free strings, you know, I get products from them, and, you know, but they pay nothing. There's nothing in any of my contracts with any company that says you must post NYXL strings are the best 3 times per month, bar none, you know, and that's it. The endorsements are a give and take relationship between you and the company. It's not a monetary exchange, at least not in my case. I certainly wish it was. But no, there's no, oh, she's saying that because she gets paid to at all in the slightest.
Let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about let's talk about soloing. As someone who's listened to rock and metal my entire life, I've always wondered, do guitar soloists hear it in their head first? Or is it all in the fingers? How do you sonically construct a solo?
Well, I think some people do improvising, and then some people are composing, especially with some of the neoclassical stuff. It's very much composed because it's harmonized and there's multiple parts. Personally, I'm more of an improviser, but I learn other people's solos, mostly improvised solos, so it's kind of this weird hybrid of like I'm learning something that somebody improvised so I can learn how to improvise myself.
You can hire a kid who knows Logic Pro, which is what I do. And then, so I have a riff. I'll have a riff for Cat Jam, my song that I'm going to do in a little bit. And I know I want it to stop, and there'd be meows. And then I want to pick up again. And I know that I have that riff, but then I don't, exactly. And I know I want the tempo to be this. So he sets a click, and he does the click, and then, exactly, and then we kind of run out of ideas. But then I just let the tempo go, and I will record and improvise ideas, and then I'll go through and listen again, and I'll strip those down, and I'll strip it down, and I'll get it precise, and I'll find there's a melody there. And then you can build the chords underneath the melody. Sometimes you have chords you like, and you think, I love these chords, I know there's a great melody on top of it. Sometimes there's a melody, and you think, well, I don't really know what the emotional resonance of this is. And with the computer, it's such total freedom. I did a song with the Miku pedal, where I recorded a melody into the computer, no idea what the chords would be. And then I could paint string sections with MIDI bars. And I didn't have to know what note, I didn't have to have an orchestra. I had total freedom to create all these different, one minute it was angry, and then it was sad, and then it was happy, and all tracking along with the melody. So I find the computer to be just liberating. It used to be liberating.
Cat Jam. You know, I do all my own recording. I've had my own studio for about 8 years. And I did that because I don't like the confinement of working in someone else's studio. I can when I do a session, but 9 times out of 10, when I get hired to play guitar for something, they say, you know, do you need to come into the studio? I say, no, I'll send it to you guys tomorrow. I do it in my kitchen, or, you know, I got rid of my actual studio space last year, so I just do it in my kitchen at home. And you can do so much, really. Like, it's, you know, the age of technology is so freeing that, you know, you don't have to go into a studio and pay for an engineer's time if you're willing to put the work in and learn how to do it yourself, which I was. So when I record my own stuff, like you take the song Pandemonium that you guys heard before we came out here, I start with the story. Because I think the guitar is the way that the guitar player gets to tell their part of the story. Even if it's just a solo in a song with words, I think the guitar solo is the way for the guitar player to add their chapter. So I always think about what the song's going to be about. Like Pandemonium, whatever you take from it, it definitely means something. You know, I'm always interested to hear what people's interpretation of the song is, because it's a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, as you can see, like when it resolves. So that's the first thing I think about when I do a solo.
Woo! So, you know, storytelling, obviously the internet it runs on storytelling. So I guess, you know, none of us should be surprised that this has really dovetailed into social media and content production. How much of what you do starts with thinking about Instagram or YouTube or things like that? How has that affected your creative process and your creative output?
0. None. Honestly, I mean, I do have a good social media presence, and I love it. I don't have a social media team. I do all my stuff myself, all my posts, all my comment replies are all me. But as far as what I'm going to play, people are going to hate it anyway. And people are going to, you know, some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. But I think when you start making art for the comments, I think that's when you've completely gotten off track.
Yeah.
My life is totally ruled by social media, and I need help. I've removed Facebook from my phone. I'm going to give it to a third party. No, it's become a problem. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram are big ways that I reach new people. Want to give a shout out to the Masters of Shred page on Instagram.
Yeah.
They post great stuff every day. They post, and I got to tell you, the first time I scrolled through, and it's, you know, Edward Van Halen and Zach Wilde and Nita Strauss and Steve Vai, and then they're me. having a nervous breakthrough, a guitar-based nervous breakthrough. So I'm very, very reliant on it. I do, when I write a song, I do think in the imagery. I do think in that this will be a video, and what would be visual, what would be cinematic, what would be eye-catching, what would be shareable. It does come into my mind. It doesn't rule the process, but it's part of it. And the social media, it's very exhausting. I think that the players are getting exhausted. I saw Jared Dines. He looks tired. He says he's ready to take a break. I think the posting schedule can feel desperate.
Oh, it's exhausting.
From some people. Sort of like, here's this, it's the fastest of all. It feels like just all for the gram. And so I think that we may reach a point where I have to slow down.
Yeah.
Well, I found it interesting when Instagram used to only allow 15-second videos. That was way easier. Now it's a minute that you have to film.
Because YouTube and Instagram are so great as tutorials, it's created an interesting world where the guitar teacher in person may or may not have relevance anymore to some. So how do you think that, is there any future for the guitar teacher as a profession? That's what I'm saying.
I think that, because I'm a graduate of YouTube University myself. I do watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. But I also, when I was a kid, I was playing shows around here in Los Angeles. I would always go and knock on other bands' dressing rooms and say, "Hi, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Nita, I'm in the band playing before you guys. Hey, you know that solo that you do, this song? Can you show me how you do that?" And I don't think it was a chick thing. I think it was a guitar player to guitar player thing that no one ever threw me out. No one ever turned me away. They said, like if a kid comes to you with a guitar in their hand and say, "Hey, can you show me how you do that?" It goes a long way. And I learned a lot more by seeing that and doing that than I ever did from any YouTube or any DVD and anything like that. So while I think it has its place, I think that someone being there and instructing you, or even over Skype, instructing you, saying, "Okay, you're doing it right, but see how your thumb is there? Put it back there. That's going to give you a better grip on the neck." YouTube is not going to teach you that. So I think there's always going to be a place for a guitar teacher.
And as we move into 2018, or I guess we're firmly in 2018 at this point, it's February, right? Where is rock's place in the popular imagination now, do you think?
Well, one thing that I think influenced it, and it's kind of weird, is the Guitar Hero thing. Because I think a lot of people have brought guitar, because it's like there's Buckethead in Guitar Hero, is there not? Yeah,
I can't play it.
Guitar
players can't play Guitar Hero.
No, it's weird.
It's like
but I think it introduced people to Yngwie and Buckethead and I think that was kind of an interesting thing to bring younger people who didn't have, like rock wasn't the mainstream thing as it was when I was a kid, that they're getting it through a video game, which may or may not later make them want to seek out how to actually play.
Well, it's an odd question because it's predicated on a past position of music. So rock's heyday is the 70s, perhaps part of the 80s, just in terms of commercial size. But the difficulty there is that music itself has been displaced. I mean, chefs are bigger celebrities than a lot of musicians. Food, it has as much a cultural place as music. A new restaurant, a new dish, pictures of food on Instagram. Just the idea of food takes up as much cultural space now as music did in the 70s. It's very strange. So as to say, what is the place of rock? What is the place of music? Music has been undermined and destroyed, and we must save it. And we will. Woo! Together.
Yeah.
Applaud that, please.
Yeah, I do think it's quite cool that, there has been a loss. There has been a great loss of shred guitar and of great guitar playing in pop music. But I do think it's cool that if you look at someone like Rihanna, who had Nuno Betancourt playing guitar for her, you look at Pink, who had Justin Derrick, still has Justin Derrico, a phenomenal shred player. It's still there. It's not dead, Satriani. It's how can he say that shred is dead? You know, it is still there. You have to look a little harder, but when Nuno's on the stage with Rihanna, it is there.
And as we move into a new era, it turns out that teenage girls are the largest section of new guitar buyers. And
Really?
Well, that's what.
Yeah, that's what it is according to the Washington Post.
That's
They
awesome.
call it the Taylor Swift effect. Not
Taylor
necessarily
Swift.
electric guitars, but teenage girls are now have displaced boys as being the biggest buyers of guitars. Period. The boys are buying production software. The girls are buying guitars.
Huh. I love that.
Jeff Bezos.
So
CIA.
let's talk a bit for a second. And by the way, we're going to open it up to the audience for a few questions. Sorry.
Was the teenage girl on a question?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to. Who was the person that we saw at the end of the presentation that would look like they were 11 years old?
Lisa X.
Lisa X.
How old is she now?
I think she's about 13, 11 now. She was 8 then.
Right.
Yeah.
Too good.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Now that there's an entire new generation that's fusing like dance music and hip hop and other things with the guitar, do you keep up with cutting edge styles? Do you see who's out there and try to absorb what they're doing into what you're doing?
Well, I think it's harder to follow. I remember when I first started getting into this stuff, there was, I was into metal. Yngwie came around, there was one record, and then you kind of backtrack to Alcatraz and that Steeler record that he did. And then there was Shrapnel Records. So there's but at that time, the only way you could hear it was because they were making records and somebody had to get signed and and it would cost a lot more money. And so it was a little bit easier to follow. Like now I feel overwhelmed. Like I think I try to keep up and I didn't know, like a good portion of the things that the current ones. It's really hard to follow. I mean, that's good, but.
It is a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
It is, for sure. I do keep up with it a lot because I'm a guitar player's guitar player. I love the guitar. I don't even really like music with vocals. I listen to it, but it's not my first choice. I feel like the vocals get in the way of me hearing the guitar. So I keep up with it as much as I can, and I am constantly discovering new guitar players and new things, and I love that.
I get inspired. I think, especially of the clips that I showed, Daniele Gottardo from Italy he does these
Hi, Gretchen.
soaring two-handed tapping. I was lucky enough to meet him at NAMM, and I just kept saying more, and he's like, I don't know what to play. And I said, just watching his hands, it's like watching a dancer. Now, I could not emulate that. It would be a waste of time, and also he's already doing it. But maybe there is something in the essence of what he's doing, something about just the artistic thrust of it that I could adapt to my own playing style. And so I think that's when how you have to take an inspiration as opposed to trying to copy.
Hello, kittens. It's Mrs. Smith again.